The bells hadn't rung in years. When Thomas heard them toll at midnight, he realized he wasn't alone. Black Hollow was a ghost town, forgotten by time and left to rot under the weight of its own history. Once a thriving mining settlement, it had been abandoned for decades. No one remembered why, only that those who stayed too long never left. Thomas had come for answers. A paranormal investigator with a growing online following, he was no stranger to eerie places. Urban legends, haunted houses, old asylums. He had explored them all. But Black Hollow was different. It wasn't just empty. It felt waiting. He expected silence. Then the church bell rang. Thomas froze, heart hammering. He had passed the church earlier. It was in ruins. The bell tower had collapsed long ago, its heavy iron bell buried under rubble. And yet, the sound echoed through the empty streets. He turned toward the church. The doors, once rotted and broken, now stood tall. The windows, shattered during some forgotten storm, were intact. A candle flickered inside, his camera feed distorted. The town wasn't just abandoned, it was shifting. Thomas swallowed hard and approached the church. He had seen tricks of light before, felt the way an old building could breathe in the wind, how time itself could play illusions on the mind. But this was different. With each step, the cold deepened. The air thickened, pressing against his chest. His flashlight flickered, barely cutting through the shadows. Then, voices, low murmurs just on the edge of comprehension. Whispers curling through the air, slipping under the door. He reached for the handle. The wood was warm, almost alive beneath his fingers. Inside, the pews were full. Figures sat in the rows, their backs to him, unmoving, watching the pulpit where no one stood. And then, slowly they turned. Their faces were wrong, hollow, stretched, as if they had been screaming for centuries. Their mouths moved, but no sound came out. Then the bell tolled again, deafening, shaking the walls. And the congregation stood. Thomas stumbled back, heart pounding. The pews scraped against the floor as the figures stepped forward, hands outstretched. A whisper slithered into his mind. Join the sermon. The church doors slammed shut. Thomas tried to run, but his legs locked in place. He could feel something pulling at his mind, unraveling his thoughts. His vision blurred, the walls of the church stretching, pulsing like something alive. The figures in the pews loomed closer, their faces shifting, mimicking his own features. The bell rang again, and this time, the sound came from inside his own head. His knees buckled. He clamped his hands over his ears, but the sound burrowed deeper, rattling inside his skull. You belong here. The words weren't spoken. They were placed in his mind, each syllable burning into him like a brand. The figures reached out, fingertips brushing his arms, his face, his throat. Cold, dry hands like parchment and bone. And then, the world went dark. Days later, hikers found Thomas's equipment outside the ruins of Black Hollow. The church was collapsed, untouched for decades. The bell lay rusted in the dirt. But on clear nights, some still hear it toll. And if you listen closely, you'll hear the whispers of the congregation, waiting for another visitor. Some places should be left forgotten. If you enjoyed this story, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. But if you hear the bells toll, never go inside.